Hey,
So
David.
welcome to everyone who has joined us. Uh, I've been wowed just by the responses as I've seen people on social media express interest in this, people from around the world. And so I know that we have people here um, presenting from far and wide, and we'll say a bit more about that in a moment. We're not even all on the same continent. Well, I guess it depends. But we have people joining us from Australia. We have people joining us from Europe. We have people joining us at ridiculous hours. And so welcome, but I feel like they deserve a special welcome, right? If you have barely had enough coffee to have you up at the hour that you are up, or to keep you up at the hour you've stayed up until in order to be with us, a special welcome to you. This is a conference on Christianity and science fiction, but it is going to be the first, we hope, in a series of conferences exploring the intersection of Christianity and popular culture. And so I will be saying a few words in just a moment about the theme of Christianity and science fiction, which is this year's. And at the conclusion, we'll have some teasers and a bit more information about what we're hoping will happen next year. And in the meantime, I'd like to introduce a couple of people who are here representing organizations that have helped sponsor and bring about this event. And so let me begin with Jim Lepkowski, who is the president of the board of the Michigan Center for Early Christian Studies. As you may have gathered, whether very recently or from the outset, they have branched out beyond the early and are even looking ahead to the very, very distant future. And so we are grateful for that sponsorship and for their role in organizing this. And so let me invite Jim to say a few words on behalf of the board and that sponsoring organization.
Well, thanks very much, James. I want to welcome all of you on behalf of the Michigan Center for Early Christian Studies and its board of directors. We're very pleased to be able to present this conference and sponsor it. My name again is Jim Lepkowski, and I'm the current president of the board and on the faculty at the University of Michigan. But I wanted to say a bit about our organization. Before I do that, though, I want to thank the organizers of the conference, James McGrath and Joshua Scott and Gabriella Boccaccini, all who are here present, and Deborah Forger, who will no doubt be joining us again later. And also special thanks to our keynote speaker, Maurice Broadus, who will be speaking later today. And we're just delighted he's agreed to participate and spend time throughout the 2 days of this conference with all of us. I do want to say a few words about the Michigan Center. It's probably not very familiar to many of you, if any of you. We're a nonprofit group in the state of Michigan. And our aim is to promote the study of early Christianity as a foundation of our culture. And so we do events like this that highlight early Christianity and its contributions and aim to promote Christian literacy as a part of that in events such as seminars, in-person and online presentations and conferences on relevant topics. We also work closely with the Enoch Seminar, and Gabriella Boccaccini will speak about that in just a moment, saying more about it, but we're pleased to be able to support their work, international work that brings together an international group of scholars who focus on work concerning Second Temple Judaism and early Christian topics. And so you can learn more about them as well as our group at our website, MCECS.org, and Michigan Center for Early Christian Studies, MCECS.org. We do ask as well that you consider this conference is free, and there's no charge to register or participate, as you know, but we do welcome donations as a nonprofit, small and large. So if you're so inclined to contribute, just take a minute to visit our website, MCECS.org, I have to say that orally, and click on the contribute button to make a donation via PayPal. So once again, welcome to all of you and our organizers and speakers and everyone who's going to be participating in this. And we're just, as a board, as an organization, looking forward very much to the presentations that are listed in the program. and hope that you enjoy as much as we will enjoy what the organizers put together. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Jim. Let me also invite Gabriella Boccaccini to say a few words, just as the Michigan Center for Early Christian Studies is not just early Christian. The Enoch Seminar is not just Enoch, and those of us who've been involved with that organization in some capacity have known that for a long time. Where an organization starts and what connects with that mission often varies. Sci-fi, I think, definitely is at least mostly outside the purview of the Enoch Seminar's aims, but nonetheless, this event wouldn't have happened were it not for the connections that organization brought about between me and Gabriele and the Michigan Center for Early Christian Studies and many others who are presenting. So in a moment, I'll say how on earth somebody who does that ancient and early Christian stuff ends up doing things about sci-fi. But first, let me welcome Gabriele to say a few words.
Just a few words. First of all, thank you, Jim, for organizing and made this conference possible, and to all the other people that were involved in the organization of this event. In particular, of course, to the Michigan Center for Early Christian Studies, that is a major organization that is responsible. As Enoch Seminar, we have been very, very pleased to join this event and to support this event. The Enoch Seminar is an international organization, international professional organization for the study of early Judaism and Christianity and also early Islam. But we are very, very pleased to be involved also in this program that deals with a contribution to the legacy of Christian thought in contemporary culture. I mean, and I'm very, very pleased with the decision of the Michigan Center to make it just the beginning of, I hope, a long series of conferences where we'll explore the contribution of Christianity to different aspects of present cultural life. It's very important that the study of Christianity is done in a secular academic context, because this is of relevance for all of us. So I don't have anything else to say, and really I want to support what Jim said. This conference is free, but if you have the opportunity or even of a very small contribution of $10 or $20 for the Michigan Center, you are more than welcome to do so, as I did, because it's very important that a non-profit organization could cover all the expenses and also receiving an encouragement to continue its mission on behalf of all of us. I'm very pleased to see that there are many people connected from all around the world. So this is one of the advantages of online events. And we hope to build around these topics a community of people from all around the world that are interested in this topic. So thank you again, Jim, to James, for your leadership.
Thank you, Gabriele. Well, let me first say, for those who caught the sort of preliminary to this conference lecture that I gave under the auspices of the University of Michigan and the Michigan Center for Early Christian Studies, that I hope nobody is disappointed that I am not in uniform and on the bridge of a starship today. For that event, I made sure that I was switching between different franchises so that there would be equal representation, just as we hope that today's event will engage with Christianity in its diversity, and will clearly engage in science fiction in its diversity. We're not a sectarian group and a sectarian conference, either with regard to religion or with regard to fandoms. That said, there are a few that are represented if you have a good enough screen to be able to see what's behind me. I did include a few action figures that were kindly gifted to me from a colleague who had them in her office and was partying. And so there are some Star Trek, and there's also, in case you can't work out what it is, Darth Tater, who is there to join us in the background. But I mention those things not just because, well, don't get to show them off to too many people, but also because I'm probably like many who started out connected with science fiction before we really actually have a memory of doing so. But some of my earliest toys, those aren't the ones behind me, at least not exactly, but they are similar. And I do remember some of my earliest toys being a Star Trek playset, Star Wars action figures, and things like that. And another franchise that I've grown and loved in it, come to love in its present iteration, is one that I just have a really strong memory of discovering accidentally on PBS when my family was on vacation, and in the hotel room after swimming or whatever else we were doing that day, there was a show I hadn't seen before, and it was an episode of Doctor Who. And being thrown in the middle, I was really confused about where they were going when they went into that blue box, and a number of other details. I've since worked out at least some of them. Still gets a little bit wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. But for many of us, and for many people in our time, science fiction is something that is simply important, right? Something that is there, that has shaped our vision of the universe, that has shaped our hopes, our aspirations, has instilled values to us, and has inspired us in one way or another. And it inspires us in our imagination, right? I often, when teaching on science fiction, show students blooper reels from the original series, because there is shot after shot of Captain Kirk walking into doors. And it's easy to forget that at the time when that show aired, there needed to be someone off screen pulling it out of the way to replicate this technology that did not yet exist, where doors simply open as you approach them. And someone came along and made that possible. And what we're doing today is, I think, much less Star Trek than maybe the Jetsons, but online conferences and learning online and these things that we've done at least a little bit for a number of years, but have done intensely and have explored the capabilities of just very recently in the context of the pandemic, really are things that, for many of us growing up, were science fiction, and now are starting to almost become second nature. So that when we need to connect with somebody over a long distance, Zoom quickly appears in our vocabulary. And probably like Google, even if Zoom, the franchise, the technology, ever disappears, we may still say we're Zooming, just like we Google things. So we'll see where all that goes, because that future is yet to be imagined. But I grew up imagining stories and hoping that one day that we would know about exoplanets and planets around other stars. And astronomy has progressed, and storytelling continues, so much so that just like ancient literature seems to many of us, even though it has ceased to be written, although occasionally new finds come to light, there is so much science fiction that there's more there than any one of us can do justice to. And so I'm really excited about the diversity of different stories and storytelling that we're going to get to encounter today. So why is science fiction of interest just generally? Why should a Center for Early Christian Studies dabble in it? Why should an Enoch seminar dabble in it? Why is somebody who is a New Testament professor doing so much in relation to it? And the answer to that, I think, is simply, it's partly institutional and where I'm teaching, partly my obvious fandom, in case you hadn't quite figured that out yet. But there is also a more fundamental reason, I think. Part of it is that I was teaching at an institution where there was encouragement to explore side interests, develop courses on pretty much anything related to religion that interested me. And I like a challenge like that. And so one of the earliest ideas I had along those lines was to do something about religion and science fiction. And that led quickly to that becoming an area in which I started writing and doing some research, presenting at conferences. And one of the most exciting things has been that it's actually given me some opportunities to write some science fiction. And so getting the chance to not just learn about and contribute and comment on other people's writing, but to tell some stories. And unfortunately, the cat is not out of the bag yet, but there's another one that's going to be in an anthology soon about robots in church, which I'm pretty excited about. But it's things like that that I think are the reason why many of us who do religious studies and maybe focus on a particular religious tradition or particular time period often also dabble in this and sometimes find it takes over our scholarly attention, maybe to a large extent, maybe to a smaller one, but at least periodically comes to the center. And one of them connects directly with the aims of both the Michigan Center for Early Christian Studies and the Enoch Seminar, which is the study of the past. When we tell stories about the past, we're really imagining time travel, right? And time travel stories are ones in which people get the chance to see history in a way that actual historical research really can't reveal it, right? It brings pieces to light, it brings pieces of evidence, it tells bits and pieces of stories like fragments of a puzzle. But to put those together, we need imagination. And while time travel stories are a risky way to do that, because obviously time travelers sometimes influence things in the process, and then you get these causal loops that just really boggle the brain. But even if we're just telling stories about the past, we're imagining time travel. We're imagining ourselves being present and seeing what's going on. The same thing happens when we imagine the future, right? And living in a time when there's so much turmoil in the world, not that, as those of us who study the past know, not that there was a time when there wasn't turmoil in the world, but living through it is different always. And we need visions of the future, right? And the more you compare the writings of somebody like Octavia Butler, commenting on the things that are going on in her time, through a vision of what might soon come to pass, you realize how insightful sometimes these things can be. In terms of the critique, the evaluation, the engagement with what's going on in the world. And so a provocative thought I often float to my students and will float to those who are in attendance today is that maybe science fiction and dystopian fiction and related genres are rather akin to prophecy in terms of the role that they play. And that makes for a useful analogy, because whether it's ancient prophecy or modern science fiction, oftentimes we lose interest in stories where they don't get the details of the technology quite right, where the crew of the Enterprise are using things that look like flip phones and seem to have been left behind by much nicer things that you and I may be using today that the original series crew would have loved to have gotten their hands on. But if the point is not to imagine the precise details of the technological future or the precise details of what's going to unfold, but to comment on the present by talking about the future and through a vision of the future, then prophecy and science fiction actually have quite a bit in common. It's not just through time travel to the past or imagining the future, though, that science fiction allows for intersection with religion. The stories that science fiction tells allow for exploration of the future of technology, for possible future discoveries, which have relevance to religion. Questions about ethics, the future of technology, not just can androids have a soul, could they be baptized and become members of your church, but even in the shorter term, right? The way technology is shaping the flow of information today and the implications of that. Telling stories that imagine where things could end up is one of the most powerful things I think that we can do if we want to offer words of caution, to offer words of analysis related to what's going on today. And of course, Christians have often wondered, if there are aliens, did Jesus die for them? And things of that sort. Do they need to be evangelized? And once we get to Jesuits in space, I'm sure we'll be hearing more about that. So the array of presenters that we have lined up for today and for tomorrow will explore some of these topics. There will be engagement with technology, with aliens, with interstellar travel, with technology and artificial intelligence. And those are just a handful of the many things that science fiction engages with. And so hopefully whatever your favorite franchise is, it's represented. But even for those papers where you may think, this is not my cup of tea, or even worse, I just don't know this story, I would plead with you to listen. I made a point of reading some additional things and watching some additional things as I prepared for this conference, saying, if somebody's gonna be talking about it, I wanna be well clued in. And it's really already enriched my life as a result. And if you're looking for a way to persuade other academics to bump things up to the top of their reading pile, present on it and invite them to the conference. And sometimes that will help accomplish that. And so those are just a few of the things that I love about this topic. I love about this area that I get to work in. And I'm delighted that what started out as a side interest became something that I actually get to spend a lot of time on. And in particular, that I have the privilege of organizing this conference together with the people mentioned. And Jason von Ehrenkrook didn't get a mention in that first shout out to the organizers. I know he's going to play I think a bigger role in helping to forge some of the links for next year's conference as well, but also actively involved in this one. And so it's just a real privilege. And I'm eagerly looking forward to hearing from today's presenters and tomorrow's presenters. And I hope that you are too. So thank you for joining us. Presenters, thank you for being here. And to everyone in attendance, thank you for what I presume the right way to say it is, thank you for getting together and geeking out for these next couple of days around these things that we already know are so interesting, but we're going to see just so much of the depths that it has to offer in the coming hours and days. Thank you.
Well, James, we look forward to hearing more about your work and the work of the speakers as we transition to the first session here in a few minutes. Before we begin, my name is Joshua Scott. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Michigan and the interim chief editor for the review of the Enoch Seminar, an online review journal. Wanted to give you some brief information about our sessions today. We are meeting today and tomorrow. The original plan for the event had also us going into Wednesday. I'm telling you this because there was a glitch in the Zoom emails that went out that originally had said we're still meeting for 3 days, and I wanted to clarify we are meeting for 2 days, today and tomorrow, approximately 12 to 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time or New York time. I encourage you to follow along on the conference website if you'd like to know more information about the speakers. All the bios are listed there, as well as some presentation handouts. We are offering this meeting as a Zoom webinar, which means only the speakers are going to be on screen unless you have indicated you'd like to join us. We invite you to participate through the Zoom chat, which is accessible on the bank on the bottom of your screen. If you click the chat button, it should bring up a window, which will allow you then to have an ongoing dialogue about the presenters' information, or if you just have other general musings you'd like to offer. I will continue to watch the chat during the presentations and during discussion time. If you would like to pose a question to the speakers, please do it there, and I'm happy to read out that question during the Q&A time. However, if you would also like to join us on the Zoom window and the Zoom screen, please use the raised hand feature, which is also in that lower bank on the bottom of your screen. And we will move you into the Zoom window during the discussion period. So please bear with us. If you raise your hand before then, I will just send you a kind message reminding you that we will move you in later and not before. I think those are all the general announcements I had about Zoom functions. I encourage people to email me if there's any questions, outstanding questions, or communicate through the chat. So Jim, I'll turn it back over to you.